The podcast you've been looking for all along. Step into the life of urban exploration with guests from around the world. Welcome to No Tracers. Welcome back to the No Tracers podcast. This week's episode is absolutely incredible. I'm super excited to share this one with you guys. This week on the podcast, I am joined by Urbex Muse, and I'm also joined by XplorewithSonny. They explore together, and so they were like, hey, can we come on the podcast together? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I love having two people on the show at the same time. It's awesome. Getting to hear double the stories. Dude, this episode is so sick. So buckle up, get ready for it. It's going to be a wild one. It's about an hour and a half long. Super excited to share it with you guys. Before we jump in, just a couple things. First of all, I've decided that I'm making another book. First of all, I have a photography book called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary. It's full of my stories and photos from abandoned places I've explored around the world. And I would love for you to pick up a copy or pick up a duffel bag to carry your costumes, your props for urban exploring in. I also have backpacks and all kinds of stuff. Go to justtheletterk.com/no tracers. You can check that stuff out. I'm actually bringing my duffel bag with me to the UK. I'm going on tour with a band called Monroe. So if you live over in the UK and you want to hang out and you want to come to a metal show, I'll be doing a video and photo for Monroe on tour, making a documentary as well. So super excited about that. Can't wait. But like I was saying, so I have a photography book out, but I'm actually creating a guidebook for urban exploring, and I'm so excited. It was actually inspired during this episode. So we are getting that started, and I'm so excited to share that with you guys. So stick around. It'll probably be done by January. That's my goal for it. I'm going to team up with another urban explorer that I've had on the podcast, Cursed Sketchbook, and I'm going to see if he wants to illustrate the photos for the guidebook. I think it would be super sick. I'm going to make it kind of like what is it? Zombieland guidebook, like the field guidebook. It's just going to be like each page is like a new bullet point. So there's probably going to be like 100 in there. Super excited about that. If you guys have any tips you want to share that should go in the guidebook, please DM me at no.tracers. Also, if you want to come on the podcast and you're an urban explorer and you have stories to share, DM me at no.tracers and let's get you on the podcast. I would love to have you. This is my favorite show to do. Thank you guys for listening. Lastly, I need to thank our partner on this podcast. That is Liquid Death Mountain Water. If you've never heard of it, well, don't worry. Guess who's got an ad for you? It's me. In 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So yeah, that was my Liquid Death ad that I made. I like to make things super spooky. You know, I am a spooky kind of person. Thank you guys. If you want to listen to this podcast and watch a video of it, basically, if you want to listen to the podcast and check out the photos of my guests, head to the Just the Letter K YouTube channel and you can actually watch their photos go by as we talk about these crazy stories that they've experienced while exploring. But yeah, let's get into this episode. What do you say? Without further ado, Urbex Muse and XplorewithSonny, please introduce yourselves and how long you've been exploring to the No Tracers audience. Also, if you guys are new to the podcast, hit subscribe. If you are a veteran listener, please leave a rating and feedback on Apple Podcasts. It helps the podcast grow. Thank you. All right, let's get into this show.
Okay, so I guess people know me by Urbex Muse. I sound so goofy when I say that. I mean, it's just, to me, I'm just always Gabby, but yeah, I guess everyone knows me by that online. I've been exploring since like the summer of 2019. Me and Sonny met up to start exploring together. Was it also around October 2019?
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah, and so then Sonny, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm XplorewithSonny. And I've been exploring and doing paranormal investigations, I would say probably since like 2018, but I don't think I got serious about exploring until I met up with the Muse, and that's when everything changed.
Nice. So, what got you guys like into exploring in the first place? What made you catch this bug for decay, for buildings falling apart, for doing some not so normal activities, if you will?
Well, so for me, it was because, like I said, I started exploring just a little bit before I met up with Sonny. So I was like kind of figuring out the urbex space a lot on my own. I didn't really know the do's or don'ts or really anything. It was very just like intuitive. But basically, I was going to college at the time, and I was a senior, and I had always heard about this like place nearby the campus that was kind of like this. I don't really call it like people call it a children's asylum or like a training school, or there's a whole bunch of different things I've heard people call it. But I'd always been really fascinated by it, and I always heard all these stories. Like when I would work jobs on campus, I would have like my bosses tell me, "Oh yeah, I went there," and like they would tell me their experiences and all this stuff. And I was just kind of scared because there's like this rumor that would always go around being like, "Oh, if you're a student here and you get caught at this place, you're gonna have issues like with graduation and all this stuff." So I was like, okay. As soon as I graduated, I said, okay, now I feel comfortable going in and checking it out, and I did, and that kind of just kicked it off for me. That I just kept wanting to do more, and it kind of just I don't know, I was figuring out as I went along, but it really sucked me in, and I just couldn't help but want to find more after that. So that was it for me, pretty much.
I love that. Sonny, what about you?
For me, I think that a lot of it is rooted from, I remember being like just super young and seeing just like, maybe like farmhouses or abandoned houses on the side of the road, just driving with my parents. And I just always was like fascinated. I wanted to know what was inside of this place. But I remember, I would be like Googling and looking up pictures of like Chernobyl. Like I had no idea really what it was. I just thought it was like spooky and scary. And I just loved looking at these images. So years later, when I found out there was a location that was somewhat near my house, I just wanted to go, but none of my friends would want to go with me. So it was like, it took so long for me to finally go to these places. But I remember the first time that I went, it was during a snowstorm, and then my friends were just like, finally, they were just like, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll go. And I just remember being in this place, and it was an abandoned mental hospital, and I remember being in like one of the main corridors, and it was just like so quiet, the snow was coming down, and I just remember thinking like, there's just nothing else like this feeling that I'm getting right now is just so unique. And from that moment, I just knew, like I knew I had to find more places, and I don't know, I just fell in love with it right there. So, and that here we are now, years later, and we're doing this all the time, and we're just finding these places that are just incredible. And it's just, I don't know, I just love it so much. I don't think I could ever stop.
Yeah, right. It's like the craziest kind of addiction, we're addicted to these buildings that are decaying and the history of the places. And I feel like we're all like our own little historians. And I think that's a very exciting thing for the future of the culture of Urbex, is keeping that history alive through like things like photos and what you guys do with your videos as well on YouTube. For you, like when did photography come? When did you guys pick up a camera? Like, was it when you started exploring, or have you guys always had cameras in your hands?
Yeah, so for me, it started off being like I wanted to explore. So I would say for me, it was always about exploring first. And it was just like the curiosity, because when I was first exploring, and even like when we were exploring together with me and Sonny, I was always just like the kind of like the observant person, because he was doing videos before me, and he had a camera like beforehand, like pretty much since the time we met up, and I had nothing. I was just, walking around just pleased to like kind of be almost like in the backstory, watching him do his videos, do photos, and I was just, whipping out my iPhone and like taking random shots like that. And I only got my camera in like March of 2020. So I've been exploring for like, I was getting close to like the year mark of exploring without ever really taking like real photos on like a camera. Mm-hmm. But it got to the point where I just wanted to like develop it as a hobby more. I feel like it's something that for me, I just learned about photography through the lens of Urbex, rather than the opposite way around, where people are photographers and then they just add that to like Urbex and like their experience. So It was a little bit like the opposite way for me, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like I'm the other way you were just explaining. I was a photographer first, and then like discovered kind of like community of urban exploring. And I grew up overseas and then moved to California. So I met up with like a bunch of people at a photography meetup that we had out here, and somehow the topic of abandoned buildings came up. Somebody was like, oh yeah, there's this abandoned hospital. And I was like, wait a second, there's other people in the world that that love this kind of stuff as like the same way I do, like, let's go. And so for you guys, like, speaking of, photography, and I recently watched one of your recent videos from like last week when you guys were in that toxic building and you had hazmat suits on. Can you talk to me about like the gear that you guys bring into these places? And that could be from the actual camera you use, your backpacks, masks, anything like that for like newcomers that are getting into the hobby.
Yeah, I think that that was like the first time those hazmat suits came out, but because we heard a rumor about this, one of our friends who went there told us that they explored it for a few hours and they had to leave. They had rashes on their skin, they had sore throats. So like when I heard that, I was like, I wanted to go to this place, but I know that we're going to be in here for longer than 2 hours or an hour. We're going to be in here for like 6 hours probably, because we're taking pictures, we're filming YouTube videos, and we're also doing TikToks. So I wanted to know that we are going to be in there and be protected and not have to worry. I don't want to get rashes. I don't want to have this get sick from Urbex. I love this. I don't want it to be a downfall of my health. Mm-hmm. So usually we don't wear the hazmat suits, but usually I say I always bring a respirator with me. I do wear them a lot more now because I think just exploring with like a little face mask is not really enough. So I try to wear a respirator I always have that with me usually. I try to wear it. I always bring like my camera. I always bring like a knife with me. Trying to think.
Lights.
Lights, like big like LED light panels. I bring a flashlight.
That's like for his, his whole thing is he loves on TikTok. Like he has his own style, which I think is super cool that we also have like 2 different ways that we make TikToks. But for him, he loves bringing like his little flashlight as a prop almost to make it seem like, oh, you're like a point of view, like walking through a place with like your arm extended out with a flashlight. So for him, it's like both the practicalness of like being able to see, and like for photos, we have like our light panels and also for filming, but then you also have like some stuff you just bring for the intention of like creating content, I guess. To kind of, and then there's all your, to delve into like the paranormal gear, like he always brings all of his stuff. If he has an idea in advance that like there's a spot that's interesting that he thinks, oh, I might want to do like investigating, then there's that whole separate section. But yeah, I think for me, like, I don't know, it's like hiking gear kind of stuff. Like, because sometimes we take like the weird ways into places, which I guess is a whole other thing, is like if, because there are some explorers out there who love to just take a simple way, which is fine. It's just for us that like we prioritize more than anything like not getting caught, and that's our big thing. So like if we have to go through the woods, like it's fine. Yeah,
I just feel like it was funny because I was listening to some of the other podcasts and I saw that Greg Abandon was on, so I was like, I'll watch this one because I'm just really familiar with Greg, and he was saying that he always takes the hardest way in, and sometimes it's not even on purpose, but he just goes in. It's like the first way you see in, go in, because you don't want to waste time just like being out in the open in some of these places. So that happens to us all the time. So when I heard Greg was saying that, I was laughing because I could just picture him like just being like a goofball,
Yeah, but definitely. So I think that's where like, again, like a lot of that hiking stuff might come in, which is maybe is not something that a lot of people think of, but for me it's like hiking pants, more heavy duty boots, also just because like it gets grimy and like it's just easier to navigate when you're wearing like good quality shoes. I'm trying to think what else, if there's anything. Camera, light.
Yeah, there's certain gear that we wear. Usually,
like bags,
like your packs, and like you're not going to see me wearing like jeans into an abandoned building, or like a yellow T-shirt or like a red T-shirt or something. I try to dress with like all earth tones, super stealthy. So if I have to drop down to the ground and lay there, no one's going to see me. I don't want to stick out. I want to blend right into the environment.
Right.
I think it's also just something that you like figure out over time too. It's like I'll never forget, I went exploring, and this is before I knew any better, and I went in like Lululemon leggings, and I went through some like hole in a window, and I got snagged on like some, I don't even know what it was. It was like some screen, and I tore my like pants open. I was like, thank God I'm wearing like a huge denim jacket. Otherwise people are going to just see my whole like, butt. So it's just stuff like that you don't even realize until you like kind of have those experiences too. And I think that's okay to have some trial and error with Urbex. I think that's part of the experience.
Yep, you have to have it.
Yeah, makes for some fun stories.
There's not it doesn't exist yet as far as I know, but I would love to create one, an Urbex guidebook, like a how-to Urbex for dummies kind of thing. I think
it's so true though, because like, even people just who wanting to get into this, they don't realize of anything that can happen to you, so it's like it would make people really think about it before they start this hobby, because it's not for everybody. What kind of hobby you can just get arrested at any moment? A piece of a brick could fall on your head and kill you. You don't know what's going to happen, and we just are, we accept those risks and those chances.
I think also the way you mentioned too, like the idea of that book, I feel like it'd be cool too, because like I don't know, I feel like a lot of the hobby, at least for us, like when we hear about other people's perceptions, I think a lot of it's based almost like on stereotypes. And so I think sometimes it's nice to have like maybe like if there was something out there, like an insider's perspective of like, hey, yeah, like maybe some stuff is crazy sometimes, but it's not always like everything that you see in like those clickbaity titles.
Dead bodies found.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I actually had someone ask me, they're like, oh, do they just leave the bodies in the morgue? And I'm like, do you think like, you think that they would do that? I don't know.
Oh my god, what? Oh my god, people are crazy. It's hilarious. Like just the questions I get, all the time, like it's hilarious. And I should do like a whole separate podcast on just questions that people ask us, because there's so many random things that would just make everybody laugh, it's great. But so speaking of like ripping your pants and that kind of stuff, do you guys have any like Urbex injury stories you can share?
I don't know if we really have that many, to be honest.
I think I probably have some more than you. I'm
trying to think for me, it's just a lot of like bruises. I feel like I never have gotten anything major other than like huge bruises, because like I'll squeeze myself through spots where like, I remember this was actually one spot I went to alone because Sonny was busy and I knew that it was open and I'd been wanting to see it. And like every time I went, there was always some sort of issue. So I was like, I'm just going to go for it alone and whatever, which I never really do. And probably I don't advocate that everyone goes exploring alone. I think you need to be a certain type of person to do that. But yeah, it was just like a really small window. And I had to I almost call it like the inchworm, because you couldn't fit in unless you were kind of like just wiggling and kind of like throwing your body inch by inch. And so you have to imagine every time you're doing that, I'm like hitting my legs in like every section. I remember I looked insane. It was still like summer after, like, I was wearing shorts out in public and Sonny was like, my God, you look crazy.
You should have seen how bruised this girl's legs were. It looked like she was strapped up and someone was hitting her with a belt on the legs. Both sides, bad, from her knees up to her like upper thighs was just bruised. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
But that was like, at the end of the day, it was worth it in my opinion. Like I really wanted to see that place. There wasn't a lot inside, to be honest, but there was the morgue, and I wanted to see it. So I also just, I don't know. I pride myself on when I do those things. It makes me feel kind of like a badass. Like, oh yeah, you did that entrance. Not everyone would. So
Yeah, I draw the line at like claustrophobic situations. That's not for me. I would not. Nope. Yeah. I get like when my fiance has her leg on top of my legs, like at night and we're going to bed. I'm like, no, I can't. Like I'm freaking out right now. Like I can't imagine going through like a cave or like a tiny. Nope, not for me. But
yeah, I mean,
I think for injuries for me, I think just like random bruises. Like I remember like I cut my hand on glass once in an abandoned mental hospital, and I had no idea because I was so pumped up on adrenaline, and it was like 20 minutes later. I was wearing like a white like cloth respirator at the time. This was like one of my first explorers. My friend's like, bro, you got blood all over your face, and I'm the first thing I'm thinking is like, what? And I didn't realize my whole like hand was like sliced open completely. I had to do I had to whip out like my med kit, and I was like taping my finger up, but my blood was like dripping right near the morgue of this place, and that was super creepy.
What did you see on the wall after you looked up on the wall and it said
right behind my friend? He was like, "Bro, you're bleeding, like your blood's dripping in this place," and I'm thinking in my head like, "Okay, this is like definitely not good." And I'm looking at him and I'm looking behind him, and right in the wall behind him it says clinical blood right behind him. So I thought that was like a weird coincidence.
Whoa.
But it's
We've had a lot of weird experiences.
Yeah, besides that, I think just like random cuts. I mean, one time we were running into a bando. It was like early morning. Remember that? And there was like a trench like built around this bando. I didn't even see it because I was so focused like on trying to run into this place. I didn't want cars to see me, and I like stepped down and I just buckled my knee like so hard.
He fell into a tactical role well that I didn't think he even fell. I was like, what are you doing? You're like a little secret agent over here. And then afterwards he tells me we're in there. He's like, my knee. And I'm like, oh, you didn't mean to do that?
Well, when in doubt, roll it out. That's what I always say.
But that's actually like the same thing I did at one point too. This was like early on when we were exploring, which I was lucky that I actually didn't get hurt. God. But yeah, I was going into a building. This isn't really the case anymore, but back then the way to get in was like there was a window, and it's so crazy that they left it like this for so long. It was a window that you could literally just swing all the way open, and it's like I don't know, it was just a really easy way to get in. So I'm getting in, and I guess the shoes I was wearing at the time were a little slick, so when you're like on tile, sometimes it just right, you like kind of slip. So I did that, and then the floor was like covered in glass, and so I just went down.
Oh.
But Sonny was outside behind me because he hasn't gotten in yet. So he's like, "Dang," because we hadn't really known each other that well. He's like, "Dang, this girl's like intense. She's like rolling in this place," and I'm like, "No, I fell."
We like got in there, and I'm like, "Damn, that was like what'd you do, like a tactical roll on the floor?" She was like, "Oh no, I fell on all this glass." I was like, "Oh well, it looks cool."
I was like dusting myself off because I was like covered in dust. And oh my god, it was just funny. But it's more like near stuff. I've never really had anything more than bruises or just like near.
Never fell through floors or anything. Usually I'm like, if the floor seems like sketchy, I'll try to like walk on the sides. I'm like pretty aware of that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't want to like fall and break my legs. That would be terrible.
Yeah, that'd be an embarrassing story to tell. People be like, what happened to you? How you break your leg? And I'm like, oh yeah, like I went into an abandoned building and I just fell through the floor because I was not paying attention. Like,
oh man, yeah, I remember. It reminds me of this time I was in Washington. I got to explore an abandoned nuclear power plant. And we had 2 days there. This band had like rented it out because it still had like a property owner, right? And you can like, they filmed like Transformers there and like a bunch of random movies. But this band rented it out for 2 days to film like 2 or 3 music videos in different spots in there. And there were sections where like the floor just like wasn't there. Like it was like a great floor, and then there were like sections that were just missing out of the floor, and it was like a 50-foot drop. And I was like,
yeah, imagine.
What is this place? Like I will literally die here. Like what?
That's trap.
Yeah. I've seen a few places like that where I mean like we've walked around and we know that there's like sections that look really weird. Like I've had some places where I've walked down the hallway and then you look and you kind of see that the floor just like slowly angles down, and you're like, oh, okay, there's like the bathtub that was on this floor is now like 2 floors below me. Like, so sometimes it is a little crazy to see like the infrastructure of places and how, I mean, really when you think about it, it's like you see sections like that and it makes you realize, yeah, where I'm standing right now, that could have happened right here or it could happen any second, you know?
Yeah, you always got to be aware.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, we try to be aware as much as we can, yeah.
So take me into your scariest explorations. Sonny, I know you do some like paranormal stuff. Like take me into those like really scary stories. And this could be either paranormal. This could be running into people in a bando. This could be, I've had people on the podcast talking about getting like held up at gunpoint. Like crazy shit happens. God. Yeah, no, it's insane. Like
I think we'll start off with just like regular crazy Urbex stories, and then we'll do the paranormal ones after. Because I think most of the stories we do together are like secure, either like security or cops or something like that. Usually when me and the Muse are together, that stuff is, I feel like it happens a decently amount of time.
Yeah, I mean we've had like some, I'm trying to think of like some cases.
The
like
first thing I thought of was when the abandoned camp with that dude on the quad.
That's what I was thinking of.
That dude probably had a gun based off of where we were. So basically
to back up and we'll go back into what happened. It was like, it must have been winter because it was snowing and there was snow everywhere. And mistake number one that we made here was that there is not really a great place to park. And so we kind of were just like, whatever, we'll park right next to it. Horrible idea. Never do that.
And but I feel like the only reason we did that was because the main place we wanted to go, we figured, we couldn't do this. So this was just like a random, it was like all these little bunch of cabins on the side of the road. So we're like, we'll just park here for 10 minutes. We'll check it out.
It was one of those sections where it makes you think kind of like you're in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, it's not like the well-known abandoned spot. It's just like an abandoned thing you drive by and in like a super small town that you almost feel like no one would really think about it, I guess, as much. I don't know. I think either way, we should have taken it more seriously. But we were in there walking around. And the first thing I guess we'll talk about is like what we actually stumbled across before that guy even came by. Because we walked into the cabins and we walked full on into like a living situation. Like people were using the cabins, which was, it was intense.
Felt weird.
We walked in and there's like beds that are still made. Fishing poles, jackets, pill bottles with ominous powder in them that I didn't want to touch.
It was
collections of like firewood. They had a pot still set up to like, you could tell that they had like tried to set up a fire underneath it. It was extremely very much like, it looked like anyone could walk back any second. So I was in there and I was like, I feel so freaked out. Someone's going to walk in here. So that was like my first thing always on my mind. I was already freaked out because we'd never come across anything like that. We'd never bumped into anyone like homeless or anything like that in a place. So it was the closest we'd ever gotten to feeling like someone could come by any second.
Or someone could be watching us, like, what are they doing like in my space?
Well, because we were also kind of like, we hadn't seen all the cabins at that point, and we never actually got to see the rest because we're like, well, what if this isn't the only one? You know, there could be other ones where other people were staying. We don't know. So we were headed out of there, and we were kind of like trying to navigate it. We go into another cabin, and we kind of think it's cool, and then out of nowhere, we hear like this noise.
Yeah, I heard this noise in the distance. So like, I'm super paranoid when I explore. Like, I'm always listening. I'm always looking out for security cops. Like, I'll be going checking the windows and everything, you know. And I hear this noise from far away, and I know a noise of like a quad or a dirt bike. and it sounded like a quad. So I'm like, let's get in one of the cabins like right now, just in case. And before we know it, here comes this dude on a quad, and he's on the quad, and he's like standing up, and he's looking because there was snow there, so he's looking at our footprints, trying to track where we went.
Yeah, because I thought you were saying he knew that there was someone.
Yeah, but you were like in the next room next to me, like in the bathroom, and I was telling you just like to stay there. And I'm like kind of in the kitchen where the front door is, and I'm like watching this dude from like behind. So like if he turned around, I could kind of like hide, but like where I was, I can see. And he's like looking around, like searching for footprints, and he's getting confused because the snow just happened to be melted right here, so the tracks were gone.
Yeah, so it didn't look like it led into the building, which was good at least. But yeah, I just remember feeling super sketched out because you kept hearing him kind of loop around. Like he would kind of loop around, be gone, loop around, but he would never really went far. And it was crazy too because I'm like squatting down in this bathroom, and I just know for a fact, because I hear him. I can literally, because, you know, it's just the wall, and then it's like he's like probably like not even 5 feet ahead of me because I hear him right in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God, if this guy looks in this window and looks down, he's just going to stare down and see
we were
me.
close to him. We were close. And
it was crazy. It was the closest I've ever been to anyone. Like if like it was like security or probably not security, but maybe like someone who, I don't know if really anyone owns the place. It's always hard to know.
I feel like he was probably the owner, or he was a friend of an owner who was checking on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, where we were, I mean, it's not unnormal for people to carry guns. So my first thought was, let's not have this dude even see us or know we're here. Let's just kind of stay calm and not move and confuse him. Because if he's looking around at all these prints, he doesn't know where they go. He's going to be confused. And eventually I'm watching this dude. He just takes off, and he's going because there's an abandoned building on the next property. And I know he's going over there.
Yeah, and it's actually the more well-known one too. It was the one that we initially wanted to go to, and there was actually 2 other spots nearby there too as well. But yeah, so we were thinking like, oh, he sees our car there. He probably looked around the cabins first, and then he's like, oh, it's probably that they would try to go to this other well-known place. So we hear him take off, right? And we kind of give it a second. We hear it's quiet. And we booked it.
Yep, I'm like, it's time to go right now.
Oh my God, we booked it. And we just thought it was funny because we're driving away and we're like, this man's going to be like clueless. He's going to come back and he's going to be like, this car is gone.
Yep, he's going to know. He knew. He would know that he got duped. But I thought it was funny because like there was this truck that kept passing on the road, this like loud truck. I feel like it maybe was someone else who was like an owner or like a friend of an owner. And like as we got in my car and left, me and this dude had like a stare down. I like looked right at him and he looked at me like almost like he knew that it was us.
Makes me think in retrospect of like that Twilight scene when it's like Edward Cullen and
yeah, that's what I felt like. We were like just like as I passed, we both like made eye contact and I was just like, what?
Yeah, so that was really intense. I feel like it's interesting because it was both like scary at first because our mindset was like, who is staying in these cabins, and then it shifted to like, oh crap, like we need to get out of here.
Yeah,
so that was definitely something. And I'm trying to think of like some other ones. I mean, they're not always like super scary, but like in the moment, like your heart's just pounding.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I had one where I was exploring with another explorer and we almost got caught, and that was the closest I've ever been to getting caught, and it was the scariest. It was like everything was in slow motion for me. That was a crazy story. And I'll kind of just give a brief overview of that. It was a huge abandoned state school, and we knew that it was hard to get into. We had a little bit of information about some of the buildings, really not much. And I was just like, whatever, we'll just go. And how intense could it be, really? So we had to go through like so much property, so much, because I'm trying to go in through the back way. And then the person I was with, they were also down to just go through the woods and everything because, I mean, they knew a little bit more about this place than I did. So we get into the campus. We're going. It's the building we want to go to is on the other side of the campus. So we're going through the woods, and there's fences in the woods, and it was so overgrown. But I haven't seen any cars driving around. There wasn't any security, as that's what it looked like so far. So I'm like, okay, cool. We finally get near one of the buildings. We've been hiking through the woods for like an hour now. The building we get to, like all the alarms are going off inside the building. So I was kind of like, this is like kind of weird. And he was messaging his friend. And they were like, oh, that's normal. Like they were going off when I went. So I'm like, okay, let's just go in really quick and check this place out. It was pretty cool. It had like it was like a therapy pool in there, and it was pretty chill to see. And then we got out and we're like, no one's even in this campus. It looked like a ghost town. So let's try to check out some of these other buildings, see if we can get in. And we're going around. Everything's really locked up. The place still had power. And I'm like, we're not getting in these buildings today. No way. There has to be like another way in. And as we're like kind of near the tree line, near one of the other buildings, and I'm looking in the woods, and I'm going, what the hell is in the woods right now? I see something like white going through the woods. And it took me a second to realize, okay, what would be white moving around like through the woods? It was like a truck.
Oh, shit.
So I like grabbed my friend and I kind of like threw him onto the ground. He like landed in like a bush and I jumped down and it was like tall grass. It was probably like a foot tall, the grass.
Wow.
So I'm laying in the grass. My face is smushed in the ground. I'm completely still and I'm looking with one eye toward the road. The road is like 5 feet in front of me, right?
Oh
So
my God.
this truck drives up super slow. My heart is like pounding right now because I know we're going to have to probably run out of here. And I don't know, like, I don't want to leave him behind. You know, I wouldn't do that. So I'm like, we might be getting caught now, you know?
Shit.
So the truck is slowly going by. And then I see 2 dogs just walking like behind this truck. And then there's a car behind those dogs. And I'm thinking like, okay, like this is like some security guy with like these dogs that he trusts like to help sniff people out or something. So I'm thinking like, oh, we're like about to be done right now. Like it's like the flight or fright is like so intense, but I'm still just laying there and I'm watching and this dog is like so close to us. I'm thinking in my head, like, how does no one see me? Like, is Call of Duty real where like if you just lay still and you know, because that's where I learned this. Like,
Yeah.
I learned this from Call of Duty. You just lay down, and I'm dressed like in like all like kind of like dark green and gray. And my friend is moving in the bush, and I'm like whispering like, "Stop fucking moving! Stop moving!" And he finally moves, but the dog is staring like right where he is. And I'm thinking in my head like, "Oh my God! Like I'm about to get bit by a dog right now."
Oh.
And then the wind blew, and this dog went from like super aggressive, like staring at us, to like a derpy, like doo doo doo, like walking away. And I'm like, "Oh my God! We just were saved." Like something happened and then they just kind of moved away slowly and everyone just went away. And I'm like, how did this happen? But we still had to escape the campus through here. So we had to, from that moment, once I saw them cusp over this hill, we had to run back through the woods, jump over this fence. My friend got his pants stuck, his whole entire pants ripped over the fence. He threw his camera bag down into like this creek.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. We managed to escape and get out of there, but it was the closest call, and it was the most scared I've ever been, like with just like security or something like that. It was crazy, but escaping and getting out, the rush from that was like so intense. I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like I could like fly. I felt like I could go anywhere and explore and just, it would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's like the most intense though, is like when you go through like those crazy experiences, when you like make it out like intact at the end of it all, you feel like amazing because you just feel like, I don't know, like that you finessed it somehow.
Yeah, it's like
I
a
don't know.
special mission.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, you just think about all the people who probably wouldn't have been able to make it through that, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. We did this this abandoned jail like maybe 2 years ago, and it had like a boxing ring and like solitary confinement, all kinds of crazy stuff. It was super sick, and we were in there for like an hour, and I guess we had tripped like a silent alarm, so security came and they were looking around the building, and then I guess they called the cops or something, and this cop like pulled his truck up right next to the building. Like he was basically touching the wall of the building with his truck, like hiding there, right? And we can see him out the windows because somebody had like painted over all the windows, but they were like cracked open, so we could see down to like the bottom floor, and he was just camped there, and we were like, oh shit, are we about to get like fully arrested? Like there was one way in and one way out of this jail, and he was parked right next to the hole, and we were like, we're absolutely getting caught. So we spent the next like 3 hours trying to find another way out. And we ended up we found a rope miraculously, tied it to the bars of the cells, and we like hoisted ourselves out this window and had to climb down a pipe and jump over like a razor wire fence. It was fucking crazy. Oh my God. But
that's badass,
dude,
right there.
What saved us is we were like skateboarding inside this bando, right? We had brought skateboards. I was doing like some product video for a skateboard company. And so the 4 of us had skateboards. And so when we got out, we like jumped down onto the train tracks and walked around the building and started skating down the sidewalk. And our cars were parked in front of the building, but the cop thought we were just fucking skateboarders, and we got away with it. And it was sick.
Nice.
So
it's so funny when you think about like these people have like no clue. Like this cop sitting there has no idea what you're up to.
It's crazy.
We've done it a few times too, where like we're in buildings and like, you know, you'll see that like something's going on and you're seeing a cop or whatever, and it's just funny when I imagine that like I'm staring down this dude right now and he has no idea. He's just doing his like daily rounds. He probably doesn't even care. Like some of these places, you know, like they're more intense, but other places just, you know, they don't really care. And I'm just like, oh yeah, he's just doing his little stroll, and I'm over here like staring him down, like figuring out his next move.
Yeah,
like,
trying to see what this guy's gonna do.
Absolutely. So. Bring me into the paranormal stories. I definitely want to hear a couple of those.
So I will say, I do believe in the paranormal based off of my own experiences, but I'm a super skeptic to when people show me their evidence, because when I'm in these buildings, if I hear a noise, I'm going to see what it is. I'm going to find out. Most of the time, it's something that is in the building already. It could be a drip of water. Those noises can sound like someone talking or someone yelling or someone screaming. You know, it can be so easy to get tricked. So I would say, like, I'm an investigator, but I'm a super skeptic about the paranormal. But I do believe, but it's hard for me to believe, you know, unless I'm getting like solid evidence where I can't physically think of what this could be. It's unexplained. And, you know, that's what it is. So
I feel like for you, it's also a lot of it like ties into like I feel like you're very in tune with your emotions. And so I think there's one thing when you think you're hearing something versus like, you know, internally, like when you're being like almost like emotionally manipulated. And I've seen it happen with him where, you know, it's not like he's hearing a voice or something. It's like, I can see his demeanor change. I can see that like something's almost like, I don't know, it feels like manipulation sounds like the right word.
I feel like that doesn't happen often, but I can think of like 2 or 3 cases where that happened, and I felt like what could that have been? There was just no explanation. You know, I never get like that in these places. I'm always have my composure. I'm always aware of what's going on. So we'll talk about the one place. The example, definitely my scariest experience and one of the most compelling experiences that I have captured. And I think not only because of the vocal evidence that I captured, the audio evidence through my spirit box, because of what happened to me, and then it was on camera. We were able to film it. I mean, UrbexMuse was filming me while this was happening. So we were inside of, it was an abandoned psychiatric center, and it was a place that I've been before. And the first time we both went there, I think I only filmed a video. I didn't do any paranormal stuff. You know, it was like the first time we were in this place. It's hard to explore a place and then do paranormal on top of it, because, you know, like I said before, we're filming YouTube videos, we're taking pictures, we're making TikToks. That takes a lot of time. And then to do an investigation on top of that and like not rush it. Sometimes I'll just say like, oh, I can't do an investigation now. I'll have to come back. So that's kind of like what happened here. But I just remember, like, I remember leaving this place and I was at my house. I was home alone. And for the first time, it just felt like someone was in my house. I was like legitimately freaked out. Not like a burglar was like in there, like searching around in my house. It just felt like there was something with me. And I never had like really had that happen to me before, where I felt like is something in my house? So I cleansed my house. I had some Palo Santo wood, and I cleansed my whole house. I was like really kind of freaked out. And then once I did that, it felt so different. It did not feel weird. I didn't feel like anxious. I didn't feel sketched out. So I was always wondering about this place, like what was here? And I wasn't even investigating, and something followed me home. Like, can that happen? So I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't want to go back here, but I do, because I think if I go back here, I could capture some like real evidence of paranormal. So we went back and we were just started off exploring, and UrbexMuse was filming. We were just like taking our time, and sometimes in the buildings we'll like split up a little bit. And I was doing some, I have like a spirit box, an SB7 spirit box, which is like I don't know if you know what that is. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the.
Yeah, I actually filmed a paranormal investigator. He flew me out to like the middle of nowhere in Illinois, and we stayed the night in an asylum, and he did a whole like exploration. So I'm kind of familiar with the gear.
What was the place in Illinois called? Was it
It was the Ashmore Insane Asylum, or
Ashmore
Estates.
Yeah. Ashmore Estates.
It was sick.
Yes, I've seen that on Ghost Adventures. That's where I've seen that before.
Yep.
So I was using an SB7 spirit box, and I was going around, and like some of the patient wards, you can see where the rooms, you know, you can see they were locked from the outside. You know, it's both sides of the hallway. It's just room, and it just has one little window for the door, huge steel door. So, I mean, these people were getting locked away in these places at night. Got the spirit box out. I'm catching some voices, you know, a little bit weird, kind of like the same voices were coming through, like a female voice. And I'm like, okay, like I knew there was a room in this place that I really wanted to investigate in, and it was a padded room. And the first time I came here, I didn't actually get to see that. We didn't see that, and we had missed out. So when we went back, we were like, oh, I know this padded room. I mean, you got to think about a padded room. What kind of patients were in here, what they were going through. They couldn't control what was happening to them. They could have been freaking out in here, trying to hurt people, hurting themselves. It's just a lot of energy that's in this place. And, I wasn't going into this like thinking this place was haunted either. I was kind of going into it like, okay, I did have my own experience, but like, I don't know really what that was. So I was going into it like really open-minded. And we were finally get to this padded room. We've been in here for, I don't know, how long were we in there for?
It was already getting dark at that point. We had been in there for a while, but that's like a common theme with us, is that we always end up staying in places for like a ridiculous amount of time until it's like getting dark. But yeah, it was getting kind of dark out, and it was a little like starting to get a little more eerie, and like you could hear like the wind whistling, and it was very like. And it
was cold. Yeah. It was the middle of the winter when we went here.
Yeah, it was freezing at the time.
So the Muse had just filmed, like she did like a little segment where she talked about the padded room and for her video. And I wanted her to do that first because I wanted her to be in there talking about the history of this padded room just out loud to, if there were spirits in there, maybe they would listen to this, and maybe if they heard someone talking about this padded room, they would be compelled to come out and maybe speak to us if I was going to communicate. So finally I pull out this spirit box, and I'm getting crazy responses that are going along with my questions that I'm asking. And then we're getting voices that sound like they're screaming. And it was like almost like overwhelming of what was going on. And I'm just like thinking like, this is like crazy that we're capturing evidence in this place. Almost like kind of like I predicted it. Like if we come back here, I'm going to capture evidence in this padded room, And at one point I just remember we were capturing some voices. I don't even remember exactly what they were saying. I do have a full video on this on my YouTube. And, I remember looking at because we kind of had the door closed. And I remember just like looking out of the window, and I don't know if it was like a flash image in my head or it was like something. I remember like seeing it was like a pair of eyes like looking in at me, almost like it was like evil. Like someone was like kind of like, oh, like you're locked in there now, like
looking down at you almost.
Yeah, and like I don't know what that was. It was like a thought that was like in my head, but like I wasn't thinking about seeing this, So that's why it like freaked me out, and I kind of like almost like froze, and then boom, out of nowhere, just had this emotional response. I was like crying. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and it was just like so weird, and it was just happening like so fast. Like I had no control. I had zero control over this.
This is like the part where I was saying like it felt like that like emotional manipulation, because it's weird being on, because I was filming this at that point. So I remember like asking him, I was like, do you want me to like stop? Like what's going on? Like at that point I'm like more concerned about him than anything else. But it was very weird to see like the shift in his eyes, because like I know Sonny and I know like what's going on. And first of all, he doesn't like, I know you never played up. You're very open to like not getting any evidence. You're very like, objective as it is, like whatever it is. But there was just something about how your demeanor like completely changed, how the vibe in the room changed. There was something that just didn't really sit right with me with what was going on. It just felt very off, and like I knew it like really strongly affected him. So.
And I was like, she was like, do you want me to stop? And I was like, no, just keep filming me. Just keep filming. I don't know what's about to happen, but I don't want to turn the camera off, because people always say that. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't have my camera on and I saw a shadow figure. And like, I just didn't want that to happen. So I'm like, just film me, whatever happens. Well, it's fine, So she's filming me, and I started to calm down a little bit. We were kind of like talking. At this point, I was like almost laying on the ground, because I was like, it just felt like my energy was being drained out of me. Like I had nothing left. And I even did the rest of the investigation just like sitting on the floor of this place. But right after that happened, I got a voice that came through the spirit box. I forget what I said. I said something like this, and the voice clear as day says proof. Like you just captured proof. And you know what I mean? Like it knew I was in there filming it. Whatever this was, I don't know if it was the spirit of a patient, if it was some energy, if it was some other thing in a different dimension, like, I don't know. I don't know if it was right there with us, or it's just, there's so much we don't know, but something was there. Something was with us. It was like
validating at the end of it.
And I think that it was something that was bad. Yeah. I want to say that, because when, like, the next day when I woke up, I had no energy. I don't drink alcohol, but I feel like I had a freaking craziest hangover ever. Remember, I was on the couch. I didn't eat all day. I was nauseous all day long. I had no energy. Wow. And for weeks after this experience, I did not want to explore. I couldn't go. I could not go to these buildings. I couldn't edit this video. I couldn't look at the footage. It like messed me up for weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I think that there was something like very intense about it, in the sense that like I feel like most of your experiences just like this one are like emotion related, and like I think just affect him like mentally as a whole. And it's like like you said, it's almost like something you carry with you, like a hangover that, like, you know, the day after you still feel it, like residual. It actually makes me think of the other time when we went into another mental hospital that's like Sonny's spot. It's actually the spot that we first met up at. Like when I reached out to him and I said, "Oh, you want to go explore somewhere?" Like I was like, "Do you happen to know this spot?" And he was like, "Oh, this is like my home spot. Like I go to all the time. Let's
go." It's
the
spot where I was bleeding near the morgue too.
Yeah, exactly. So we were like, "Oh, let's go in there." And we've gone in there so many countless times, so I can't even tell you what time this was, but we were going in. There's like a pretty easy way to get into the morgue, so we're like, "Oh, just like enter through the morgue and like walk around like we usually do." And you've always had some weird stuff happen there, but this, like, I just specifically remember this is the time when I was there and I was on like live, because this is back when I like still did like TikTok live videos sometimes, because people love to see me like doing stuff like in action, like the fact that I'm like, doing it right in the moment. So I was doing that, and the problem with the morgue is that the service gets a little janky in there sometimes. So I was trying to show them, but it was kind of going through. I don't really remember exactly what happened. I don't even really think you were investigating. I think you were just kind of hanging out, but
I don't remember.
We were talking,
really.
And then something happened where Sonny just wasn't making any sense. Like we were talking, and it just seemed like he was out of it. He was like, his words were not like, it wasn't making any coherent sense. Wow. Like I don't really understand what you were trying to tell me. And I could see that like he was being affected by something. And this is something that you told me in the past. You also had like kind of blacked out at this morgue. Like this is not the first time it's happened for him, where he went specifically to this place and he feels like there's something that's affected him. And then like he feels it like residually later on, or that it feels like there's weird gaps in like memory, or, you know, all kinds of strange stuff. But that was the time that it was weird for me, because I saw it in the moment right there that he was like mushing random words together that made no sense.
And I don't really remember.
And he says he doesn't really remember anything that happened. I remember I was looking at him, I'd grab him, I'm like, "Look, we just gotta get out of here," because I was like, "You're acting weird." And he almost like, it's almost like I had to like grab him and like move him out of there, because he didn't even want to move. It was like a little rag doll. And so I took you outside, and then you kind of seem like you're kind of like coming back to like being a little more normalized, and like, you know, we're talking again, and you're kind of like, "Wait, what's going on?" And then I end the live, and then with TikTok, what you can do is you can replay the live. So I was trying to replay the live, and of course the entire section, the entire time, everything else was in the live. The entire section where he was not making any sense was gone, which, I mean, like, because of the service cutting out and everything. So I think when
it could have been that
it comes back, but still, I mean,
that's crazy.
I just thought it was weird that like we were in that area pretty much the whole time. So if the service was that choppy, I feel like I would have lost a lot more footage. But really what was most notable to me from the playback was that like it was very specifically that whole section that was gone. And then even other parts of the morgue were in it, but why would that make any sense if the service was fine? And other I don't know. It just didn't make any sense with the way that the service was in there. I don't think it was just it cut out, but I mean, still, it was very strange how you were talking and not making any sense, and it was very odd.
It's just a place with a super, super dark history, and it's a place that I've always felt drawn to, and a place that it was the first place I really ever explored, and it was the only really place that I knew about that was near me at the time. So I feel like I just been going there so much. And I did a full investigation with my friend there, just randomly. Did not plan on doing that. And we were capturing voices through my spirit box. Just so much evidence. My camera battery died at like 40-something%. But there was the time. So I investigated this place with my friend, and then he tells me, "Dude, like we were both having like issues. Like just I feel like again I was being affected, but I didn't know how to cleanse myself. I didn't know any of this stuff really." And he's like, "Dude, I didn't like want to tell you." He's like, "My mom is a psychic medium, and she wants to talk to us," because he's like, "I told her what we've been going through." Wow. And I'm like, "Okay, this is like, you never told me this before," you know. He was kind of like, "I didn't know like how you feel about it, and like it's my mom and stuff." I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm down. Like, you know, I've been feeling weird." And she looked at me when we got there, and she said, "Please promise me to never go back to this place ever again. Please never go back." And I told her right there, I said, "I cannot make you that promise, because I will need to go back and find out what happened to me here. I can't just leave this open-ended. I can't just say, oh, well, it's haunted and there was a demon attacked me, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know what I believe in. I don't know what was there." So for me, someone to tell me that, and she was really surprised when I said that. And she was like, "I'm going to teach you how to cleanse yourself. I'm going to teach you the right ways, because I can't keep you out of there, but at least I can like show you what to do."
Wow.
But she told me a story that she actually worked there as a nurse, because she's still a nurse now. And just her being psychic and her being a medium is just something that's always been with her for her whole life. And she told me when she worked there, she felt a hand grab her on the back of the neck up onto her head, and she told me that she quit that day, and that's the reason why she doesn't want me there. She told me that there's no ghosts there, there's no spirits, there's just bad. She called it a vampire spirit, which was the first time that I ever heard this term. And she said it's a spirit that just wants to hurt you. It wants to take your energy, and it wants to basically use you and trick you into thinking that, oh yeah, it's the spirit of a patient here. Meanwhile, it's gonna try to ruin your life and do whatever. It's like, it's crazy when someone's telling you that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like something out of a movie, really. But I'm thinking of the experience I had, and that was like something out of a movie. So, it was just a mind-blowing thing. And, I've just kept on having experiences and experiences at this place. And even to this day, even just when I go there, you just feel it when you're there. You can feel this energy. I don't know if it's just me or this sadness. I was
literally going to say, it's 100% for me too. Like, I love going to this place. We've always gone. It's just like something that's like
you always go
and
back.
Chill. And I mean, maybe that's something that's to it there that we always say, like, we're talking about like what could potentially be lingering in there, and how maybe there's some aspect of it is like, oh, do we really want to keep going here? Or are we being like lured back here? Is there something that keeps like literally drawing us back in? Because there is, every single time we go in there, especially the main hospital, it does feel extremely strange. It's never like a relaxed, because I feel like there's some places that people go and they say like, oh yeah, it's actually kind of oddly peaceful in here, and I've had places like that where I've said that it doesn't feel like dark or scary in here. It feels kind of like, chill. I would say that this is not that place. This is a place that like you feel like a constant level of anxiety, of very strange anxiety, where you just you still feel like you know that no one's there. It's like not a place where like crazy stuff happens.
You're not gonna get caught.
Like
really.
It's not like it's easy. There's nothing to really be afraid of, except for like some stupid teenagers that want to like go up on the roof and like spray paint it.
Right.
It's like that kind of thing. But you still feel the need to like look behind you, look behind me again, feel like something's near me, feel like there's someone right behind me. It just feels like I never can like shake that, and that's silly because I mean, there's something about Urbex that maybe people say like, oh, well, you're exploring abandoned building. Of course you're going to feel like that. But I'm like, okay, but how long will I explore abandoned buildings and have that not like go away? Because
we're
it's
used
not
to that
really
feeling.
like,
We're
it's
used
not like
to,
something that happens in every single place. I mean, there's some places where I'm a little like on edge, but that's maybe like a new spot, and that's more like worrying about security or something, but not always worrying about like, especially for this place, I would say, how many times have we even gone? Like 50
times,
60.
or more.
I don't even know. It's just like, it's so casual. Like,
I used to go there alone and just walk around.
Like pretty much every weekend, I feel like if I'm ever over by like where you are, we'll be like, oh, like on the way we'll go to like the mall or something, and on the way like we'll stop here and
why not?
We'll go and we'll just go walk around. Like it's just a thing we do like on a weekly basis.
Yeah,
almost.
it's like I love this place, but I know that it's not good to be in this place. But I won't stop going to it, and because if it gets torn down, I wish I can go in there and like investigate and not be worried about being super loud or getting caught, and just like have full permission for them, whoever owns this place, probably the town, to just be like, yeah, you're good, go and investigate it, because I think it's going to be torn down soon, and it's going to be torn down, and whatever's there, that's it. It's going to be gone. It's going to be totally gone, and no one's ever going to capture any evidence there or possible proof that's inside of this building. So that's what bothers me. It's like, I want to go in there and really, really do a hardcore investigation and get down to the bottom of what this could be, because one day we'll never be able to do that, and it'll be gone forever. So.
Oh, man.
It is eerie because I was just going to say, but like the connecting pieces we found in there, like we've seen like what ward journals with like patient names and stuff, which is like, it's weird, like to have like those connections there. And I almost wonder like what that plays into it as well. When you get connected to like those physical items.
Right.
Go back and back and back and keep seeing it, keep discovering more. Like I feel like it's just a random spot. You like dig around the ground a little bit and you find some like fascinating stuff sometimes. I don't know. But I don't know. It is a spot that I will say keeps bringing us back.
It's crazy because I think that only urban explorers experience these kind of things. And I've like written blog posts and made podcasts and videos about that thing that you're talking about that not only draws us back to these places, but like that energy, that negative energy. And I didn't know how to explain it to people. So I just called it the darkness, because that's like the only thing that I could make them understand, was that it's just darkness. It's not like dark. It's like the darkest form of, it's like a void into nothingness. That's the only way I can explain this to people. And I think only urban explorers really get that because we've experienced this kind of stuff. And so, I mean, thank you for sharing those stories. I love hearing about that kind of stuff because it is so unique to what we do. So do you guys have any goal places, like bucket list items, like places you're dying to go to?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. There's always...
I know, I can tell you one right now.
Yeah,
100%. If I had the chance to go, Hashima Island, Japan, I would go right now. I would drop everything and go right now. That's just like, I don't know. And just what, you know, you learn the history about that place. Yeah. The history goes back so long, and it was just such a dark and it's so crazy that these things happened in life. And Urbex just brings this history out in these certain places, the dark history. And it's like, we can't just forget about these things. Like most people would probably just say, oh yeah, just demolish that island and make it a park or something. Right. You know, it's like, you can't forget about this. The people that died here, you can't just forget about them. If you forget about the history, you're forgetting about the people that died in this horrific way. And I don't know, it's just a dream location for me, just to be able to be there and just stand there in the complete silence, and you're in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. Just to experience that would be amazing. And even maybe to investigate there, but I don't know if that's like on the line of borderline being disrespectful almost, you know, that I don't really know how that would go. But Hashima Island, anywhere really in Japan for me. Japan is just overall my dream location.
I feel like whenever I tell Sonny like spots that I'm like fiending to go for, it feels so stupid in comparison because I'm like, I want to go to like a state hospital, and he's like, but it's like local, or like, I don't know, something random that everyone's been to. But I'll be like frustrated because it's like there's a spot I've been wanting to go to, and I'm so mad at myself because a bunch of people were going, and I kind of knew, but I don't know, at the time I just didn't go for it. I don't know why, and I think this is back before, because I don't really like to buy into the whole thing a bunch where like everyone's going to a spot, I need to go to the spot, but like it's hard not to sometimes just because you know it's doable and like everyone else is doing, you know. But either way, there was a time when everyone was going to this hospital. It looked dope, and there was like awesome old dentist chairs and all this, like, you know, it was like very well preserved, but there was all this cool stuff left behind, and it was like one of those spots that like when I thought about, before I really conceptualized urban exploring, because I mean when I knew about urban exploring and watching, you know, like these bigger YouTubers at the time when I was like in high school, it always just felt like something like, oh, you have to like travel like forever and across the world to like find these places. I didn't feel like it could be something I could do like in the US or, you know, locally. But that's what this place feels like to me. It feels like very dreamy. Like when I see the photos of it, it makes me just like imagine, like I guess how I glorified Urbex in my mind. So I'm always mad at myself that I didn't go before it got locked up. And it's not even just like locked up. It's like they welded the doors and like, you know.
The only way to get in would be to
like a 3rd story window. Yeah. And like there's always security and no matter when you go. And my thing too is like, I'm not going to knock anyone who like, I don't know, when it comes to like entries and stuff, I like to just use existing entrances. But I always say it's like I can't judge people to an extent of like, you know, how they choose to get in, because like a lot of ways that I've gotten in are because other people did certain things to get in. Right. You know? But for me, it's like I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be up there with like a crowbar, and then the people who do rounds every 10 minutes are like, hey, what are you doing? So there's stuff like that where I think it's more of like the fear of missing out, but you actually missed out. FOMO. Yeah. Because I don't know, maybe if I had gone, I wouldn't really over glorify it so much, but it's purely because I knew it was doable, and now it's not, and I'm just kicking myself, and I'm like, oh, but it feels like so attainable, you know?
That's your dream, explore that place?
And shut up. I don't know. I love state hospitals.
What about like around the world?
I don't know. I mean, what are like, I don't know of like, I mean, I don't want to say Chernobyl because Chernobyl's like so
touristy.
It's cool, obviously. It was super exciting, but I don't want to like, it's such a stereotype to be like, my dream explore is Chernobyl. Or like amazing, back when your thing, what was it? What was your dream explore before you found out it got demolished?
Oh no!
Oh wait, what was it called?
Nara Dreamland.
Nara Dreamland. I remember because Sonny used to always tell me about Nara Dreamland, how excited he was, and I was like, oh well, let's look it on Google Maps. And then he was like, what? And it was just a giant like dirt ball.
I heard the violins playing as a tear came down my face.
He had no idea at the time that it was demolished. Yeah,
the smallest violin. Right?
So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just that, like...
What about somewhere in Italy?
I just don't know of any, like, off the top of my head.
Polvalia.
I think it's just, like, I don't know. For me, any dream explorer is, like, an amazing state hospital that still has stuff inside, that's not super vandalized, that, you know, like, especially, like, older, like, dental equipment would be cool. I feel like I haven't gotten the chance to experience a lot of, like, older equipment. Like, I would love to see more places that aren't, like, because the psychiatric centers that have closed in like the early 2000s and the 90s are cool, but like they did get a little bit more modernized inside. And so what I love is finding those older hospitals that are like more like the 80s when they closed, because then everything that's there, like if you find wheelchairs, everything, they're more like wooden style, and it's just different, and I like that better. But you know, alas, like they're a dying breed, which is really sad. So I don't know, I think for me that's always just been my thing, is like wanting to seek out as many as I can and maybe go on more road trips. And you know, I don't know, even for me though, like I don't want to ever like downplay like what people are saying are like the overhyped or overpopular spots, because I think that that's a problem, because then I've gone to quite a few spots that I think are overly popular, and then because me and Sonny were so meticulous to like check every little corner, we find some really cool stuff that we think a lot of people would overlook. And you know, people run through there in like an hour and they're like, oh, there's nothing cool here. And I'm like, well, did you actually take a chance to like, I don't know, like look down on the ground and like just take a minute to like really analyze the place? Because when you do, you find like some really fascinating stuff. And that's how I found like patient documents or random x-ray, you know, things that are like under dirt, like that you wouldn't have known that were there. You know, it's just like, I don't know, little stuff like that. Or
that's how,
you know,
I would say before I explored with Urbex Muse, like before, she is like really big on like just like trying to just like dig through everything. She's opening drawers and she's going through everything and trying to find these stories of people and patients. And it's something that I never did. But when you do that, you spend hours and hours. We'll be in a bando for 8 hours. And it's crazy. The time flies by, you know, like a full day flies by because we're searching through all this stuff and we're uncovering history. And then there's like, it's just,
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's just, again, how I found a lot of cool stuff. Like, I mean, there's, again, like, I feel like one of the places that I went that was my first spot that I ever really explored, that I've gone back to time and time again. Every time I go, I find more stuff. Like I found, it was weird. I was looking around through a bunch of these like piles of papers, and then out of nowhere, like it was like not like blueprints, I want to say, but kind of like a design plan for like another, like a sanitarium, like that's also in the state. But it's like, why is this in here? This is like a different, that was weird. But it was like, okay, that's weird that this is like here. And it was like the original like plans. It was very strange.
Is that where you found the patient file for the little girl?
Oh yeah. So that was another crazy thing too, because this is a place where like that first place that I went exploring back when I started going to it, like in like 2019, there were still a lot of patient files left. It was like whole room just filled to the brim with patient files. And then I think what happened was either workers or someone went in there because they had dumpsters, and I think what they did was they went in and they cleared out some stuff. Because then we went into that room, and I remember it was like a big thing for a minute. Everyone was like, hey, did you realize that like all these patient files are like empty? Like at least this main one room that everyone used to know was full of them, because they would be like death certificates in there and like
x-rays.
I remember, I mean, there's still x-rays and stuff left in there. It's just not all the huge piles of patient files that there used to be. But I remember going back in there and I sifted through. I was like, you know what? There has to be something. They have to have missed something. And I literally looked and looked and looked, and I found the only file left in there. And it was amazing too, because not all of them had pictures attached to them, but this one happened to have a picture of this 8-year-old girl attached to it. And she's holding up the little placard for the place, and it's like the 60s. And I'm reading about her and how she was like born with her intestines outside of her body, so she has the scar on her. It's just crazy. And I'm like, I mean, this,
and she was in this place.
She was in there for, you know, I think they said her mom thought that, you know, obviously they didn't use great terminology back then, but they thought that she was developmentally delayed and like all these things. And then literally the conclusion on the paper was this mom has like way too high of expectations for her daughter.
Damn.
And I was like, wow, this is just crazy to read this. And, you know, just, I don't know. It was just something really fascinating.
It's messed up.
But yeah, also again, it's like the perspective it gives you of like what this place was once like.
Right. Yeah, these aren't just abandoned buildings, you know, there's so much history behind them.
But again, I think that's just, the thing there for me was just about like showing how, I don't know, I think people would, even back then when I went, people would easily be like, oh, that place is like trash, you know, whatever. It's like like people think it's like a freebie gimme spot, like the first thing that comes up on the internet. But like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's something magical about it when you're someone who, you know, and I think this is something that's like inherent in people who really are passionate about Urbex, is that they'll take the time to just like sit there and go back to a place that they've been before, because it's not just about going there and hitting it and then
checking
being like
it
off the list. It's about saying, oh, well, I was here this one time, but I don't even know if I remember going down this one hallway, and I want to like look around, and I hear they're going to demolish it, so I want to go in and see if there's anything like worth salvaging, because I think that's also something that's a whole separate topic of people taking things and what people think of that. And I think, you know, if it's going to be demolished and you're preserving some of the last history of that place, because you know damn well that a lot of places when they demolish it, it's like everything goes down with it. They don't really go in there and they don't save anything. I think to an extent that's not the worst thing in the world. But
I
don't know.
I agree.
I think the everyone is different. So
yeah.
you know,
I completely agree with you about that. Like so one of my other goals in like 5 years is to open up an Urbex museum where people can bring those artifacts, those items that they saved into this place and tell the stories of these items. I mean, like, you know, I took a giant Dr. Pepper sign from a building because they were demolishing it. And I was like, this is from the 20s. Like, I don't care if it's worth money, but this is fucking cool, you know? Like, it's sick.
It'll be gone forever.
Exactly.
And it's like, why not you enjoy it and then have that in wherever you are, and then people can see that and be like, what's that? Oh, I saved this from an abandoned building that it was torn down, you know? It's like you're preserving history by doing that, you know?
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And we're passing those stories on.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yep. Yeah. And I think there's a difference there too between, like I said, like if the place is getting demolished or not. And I think also my thing was I never want to take anything that's like integral to the exploring experience, because I think there's some places we all know that people are going there to see very specific things. Like obviously, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that like you're just using the spot for that, but it's like it's fine to be excited about something that's in the building. I would never want to take anything that I know intentionally people are going to like be upset if like they knew it was there and they missed it. Or I don't feel as bad if it's like there's multiple of something and I know that like people are either going to see it, and again, if it's going to get demolished anyways, and I feel like it's a little more fair. And then I think also too, it's just about like just generally being as respectful as a process as you can go about it. I mean, I've seen some people where I will be kind of like, okay, you took a lot, you know, like I saw people where it was like, you know, they weren't just taking one little thing. It was like 30, 40 items from like one place, and it wasn't all small stuff. It was like a whole door.
Like, what the fuck are you gonna do with the door?
Yeah, or like other stuff, I don't know. I mean, whole door, or like like there was like this spiky chair that people used to love.
The spiky chair. Rest in peace,
and
the spiky chair.
I mean, it was just like, I think it was just something that people thought was like cool and artistic. It definitely was not original to the buildings or anything, but someone just took a bunch of nails and like made like this chair that like this old wooden chair. It was like
a torture chair.
They made it look like a little torture chair. Yeah, and I guess so someone took that, you know.
But people knew it. People like knew this chair was at the spot. So like I don't know, it would always get moved around, so you would just find it in like weird places. And it was just like something that was, I know like urban explorers were doing that, you know. So it was like
it was kind of funny,
And then this person just like took it, and now it ruined it for everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's like little things like that where it's kind of like, I don't know. I think there's a borderline with everything, because I mean, especially with like TikTok and stuff, we'll see comments where people are like, "Oh, I would love to like pull up with my truck and load up," or like they want to take the furniture, and I'm like, that's not the point. Like obviously, like yes, I'll never tell people that like I don't take anything, because I think it's important to be honest and say that yes, like I've taken things, but I think there's very specific, you know, constraints under, you know, like I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that go into it, but I think people would know like what your intentions are when you're doing it. And I think if you feel schemy about it yourself, you're probably doing something kind of weird. Yeah. Because I feel like if you're like hauling out like a whole bed frame, like, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So people do that all the time. Again, like, a big thing is like they'll talk about like profit, like again on TikTok, getting comments of people saying, "Oh my God,
you know how much that's
worth?" And I'm like, probably nothing, because it's trashed in here.
Yeah, it's all it's all moldy. It's been sitting in this building with water damage. Yeah. Like I'm gonna risk taking this giant piece of machinery out, like sneaking out with it, like on my back, like a cartoon. Like
exactly. They're acting like we can. I don't know. Sometimes it's really funny when people are like, "Oh my God, I would just take the whole X-ray machine." And I'm like, yes.
You're like, and put it where?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure to some extent it's like not 100% figurative, but there are some people who say some stuff where I'm like, okay, I know you're being legit. Like, you know, when I've gone to like the abandoned like ski resorts and other stuff where people are like, oh, sell all the boots or sell all the ski. You know, I'm like, no.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we're not there for.
Yeah, it's like I'm here to explore this and enjoy this. I'm not here to become like a salesman.
Yeah, exactly.
Auctioning off ski boots on TikTok live.
Just come for some tips. Like, yeah.
Oh my God, amazing.
I mean, I feel like I will say I have like a little collection that I'm like happy with though, and I think that's 100% fine to have like little things that you appreciate from places that you know that like. Unfortunately, if another person had seen it, you know, because some of these places, not the most respectful people go. Yeah. If you weren't the one to pick it up and dust it off and say, oh, like, I'm going to, you know, laminate you and make sure you don't fall apart into dust because this paper is so soft that, like, if I rubbed it between my fingers, it would just disintegrate. Someone would just fall over it. Or someone would say, oh, this is cool. Let me set this on fire. Or I'm going to set this whole place on fire. Because we've seen that, like, everywhere. Yeah. So I don't know. I think to some extent it's, like, not in excess, but there's little stuff that it's like a little memento. Or again, like if it's a place that like a little local spot you go to all the time and you've seen it through like all the phases and you've seen it get worse and worse. God forbid if you take like one little thing, you know?
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I feel you.
Preserve the memory.
Yeah.
I feel you, absolutely. So. And then, so this one's a fun question. If you guys could live in an abandoned place for an entire week, which place would it be?
The ones I can't get into.
You're all...
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Trying to think of places around the world. It's so hard to just pick one spot, you know, for a full week there. Just
I'm trying to think for the grand architect. I'm trying to think of something that like would like be like a cool aesthetic to like live
I'm all
in, you know
fucking
what I mean?
Dracula's castle in Transylvania. Let's go, baby.
I don't know. You have any ideas?
I would only stay at Dracula's castle for a week if I could become a vampire by the end of it.
Perfect.
That's the only way.
Oh man.
Perfect.
But
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm always. I don't know.
Something is telling me to say Chernobyl. Like if I had an all access pass there, like go for it. You can explore whatever you want. You know,
Yeah.
be in
Like,
there with a friggin' radiation suit on with a Geiger. That would be awesome.
People do that anyways. I mean, people literally camp out there.
Yeah.
It would be kind of like living there anyways, because when people go out there, that's what they do. You know?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get Shy on the podcast. He's known all over the world for his Chernobyl explorations and going through the Red Forest and camping and all that stuff. But he's like, my English isn't good enough, and I'm like, I don't care. Just come on the podcast.
It was so good. No, he's awesome.
He's awesome, man.
Yeah, I think maybe Chernobyl or a place that maybe someplace I could do like a full investigation and have just like so much time and stay there for a few days and you know just have time and really just go over everything and make it super clean and good. Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, I think there'd be something about like staying in a place for so long.
Maybe
you know,
Penhurst, if I could stay there for a week in Penhurst alone.
I want to go to like the buildings that Penhurst doesn't allow you to go into. So
yeah,
we had a guest on.
It's always funny when you're walking around that little tour. I don't know. Have you ever been to Penhurst?
I've never been to Penhurst, but I had somebody on the podcast that used to work there, and they talked about like what it was like to work there and what it's like now that there's like a new owner. Crazy episode.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, because it's just like they'll walk around and they give you like a little day tour before, because we did it like a while ago where that, you know, you could pay to like stay until like 3 a.m. and just, you know, kind of have a little bit of like a free for all, and you know, it's not like there's a lot of other people there, so it was just kind of interesting. But there's a lot of buildings there that are still, I mean, you know, some of them were repurposed for, you know, letting people go in and investigate, but a lot of them are still sitting there and they're not touched. Especially like I think it's the main. Is there like really the main hospital, or it's the one that has the morgue or something? There's something. No, there's another building there. The one we walked by, and they were saying how it's either like it's just too unsafe, or there's something that I don't know. I also question too if there's something about ethics, because they did get a lot of backlash from the community after, you know, kind of purchasing it, because people saw it as like making an attraction, which in retrospect I can understand why that sits wrong with some people, but mainly for me it's more like the haunted house, I would say, is what's like, I think it's the haunted house,
like putting actors in there to scare people in a place where people were being killed and tortured in there, and that's like crossing the line.
So my thing is, it's one thing to do like a haunted house that has like a little bit of like a theme to it that's not actually like in like a location like that was once in a, you know, but yeah, I can understand completely like how that rubbed people the wrong way. So I don't know, I feel like there might also be some backlash if they took that main building maybe, and I don't know. I think
I had a good experience at Penhurst when we went. The cool thing was that like we did a tour it was from like, I don't know, like whatever, like 7 to 3 a.m. And by like midnight, everyone was left. Gone. So they were like, you can go wherever you want and you'll be in there totally alone. So we had these buildings totally to ourselves. You know, I felt like I'm freaking like Zach Bagans on Ghost Adventures, you know, because I'm thinking back to when he went here and he investigated, you know. It's like for me to stand there and to be in this moment, to be in this place where this guy was investigating, you know, that for me, that was amazing. That was incredible just to experience that.
I'll say it was kind of sad though, because I mean, while we were there, they had demolished like some other buildings. So we were walking through and you could see there was just like piles of brick, and it was kind of weird to me, because I'm like, you know how much money they're probably making doing all of these investigations and everything. And I'm like, you really couldn't have like salvaged some of these maybe with all that money you got. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, because for me, it was kind of like a shame to just see them like completely
it goes down.
Even if it was just like, I don't know. It was just like a little sad to see that.
For sure.
You know,
yeah, so that might be a place I would pick for a week. But I think if I had to pick probably Chernobyl, probably something like that. Something that's like super like epic and legendary, you know.
Oh, for sure.
I don't really know if I can pick one, to be honest.
You have to pick.
I feel like I like exploring, and I'll be the person who like drives Sonny to stay longer and longer and longer. I'll be like 5 more minutes, you know. But once I'm done with a place, like I'm done.
Yeah.
Like so.
I got
So
you.
then it's like I need to get out, because then I don't know. I mean, depending on how you get into the place or whatever, it's like, you know, it's like how you were saying, kind of like you feel a little bit of like claustrophobia, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it can start to feel like so confined in a space, mainly after like I said, when you're ready to leave, and then say either like you can't, or there's something going on. Like, I mean, we've had moments where like we're about to leave a building, and then there's like the cops sitting out there, and now we have to watch, and then we're sitting inside for 2 hours, and it's hot, and you start to feel like,
just like your story from before.
You know, it's not like a small building, but you start to feel like you're trapped because you're only able to go so far, and you also don't want to walk around and make all this noise. So I don't know. I feel like for me, if I stayed in a whole place for a week, I probably would just like inevitably hate it eventually. So yeah,
that feeling you just talked about like when you're ready to leave, you're like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like it reminds me of when I was in Denver with a friend of mine with Urbex Off Limits. I don't know if you guys know him on Instagram.
Yeah.
So we did a Denver trip together, and we hit like 8 places in 2 days. It was crazy. And the last place we went to was an old military like outpost where they used to store the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So there's tunnels underground, and it's like freezing. It was like, it started like snowing while we were in there. It was freezing, right? And we're underground, and there's like rust water, like 4 feet of like rust water, just disgusting and completely pitch black, right? So we've got flashlights. We're like doing our thing, walking around. It's kind of eerie because like there could be people living in there. We don't fucking know what's going on. So we're just walking around, and then it comes to a part where we basically had to like traverse across this metal beam to like continue going further into the tunnel. And on either side, there was like 5 feet of freezing water that was like orange. So like, I'm not going in that water, you know, there's no way. And I've got a backpack on that's like pretty big, and I'm a small person, and I'm like, look, dude, I'm not traversing across this beam. Like, if you want to go ahead. I'll wait for you. That was my first mistake. That was when I knew I fucked up. So he goes further into the tunnel, and of course our phones don't work because we're underground in like metal tubes, right? So our phones don't work. My flashlight's starting to die. And so it's like 30 minutes later, and he still hasn't come back. And I'm like, he's dead. He died. He fell. I have to go find him, but I'll never find him because my flashlight's I was like panicking, right?
And then I was like,
and I was like, should I leave? Should I get out? Like, what do I do? And so I eventually like mustered up the courage, put my bag down, went across the beam, and like yelled for him. And he was like, oh, I'm coming back. I'm on my way. So he gets back, and I was like, where the fuck have you been, dude? Like, just like,
you're like, man,
I was like, why would you leave me here for so long? He was like, oh man, I was taking these sick photos. You should have kept coming with me. I was like, God damn it, dude. Like, let's get the fuck out of here. So we get out, and the sun's setting, and like, it's like those kind of moments where you're like, oh my God, like the world is ending right now kind of situation. Like, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to lose my shit.
Yep. Especially with the tunnels too. I feel like the tunnel, it's so easy. Just to remember, you're underground.
Yeah.
This thing can cave in.
Yeah.
Like it makes you start to panic.
Okay, well, I've never thought about that, but now I'm gonna have
You have to think about it.
I'm done with tunnels. Mines. I will never do a mine. Fuck that. I am not about to die in a mine.
Yep. No mines for me. I'm not doing that.
Like with tunnels, I feel like we've had some experiences.
I'll do any tunnel.
But,
I'll do a flooded tunnel.
But here's the thing is that
anything.
like I feel like most of the tunnels we've had experience with were like, I mean, we've had technically that they're like tunnels, but they were like kind of like, I mean, in that one of the hospitals we went to where it was like, you know, not really like an underground.
Those were like tunnels for people to walk.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's like tunnels made for like the employees, and then there's like tunnels that are like, no, these are just for all the pipes.
Yeah, for like
them to run all the utilities, and it's like those are the super cramped ones. We've only had one experience with that, which was rough for me because like, I don't know. I'm not like, I don't want to say I have like full on claustrophobia, but I think that it can happen to pretty much anybody. I mean, I think everyone can feel it to some extent. And we're in these little tunnels that are full of like pipes. And
this was like a tunnel that was, if you didn't know that it was there, you would never see it. It was like in the middle of the woods. Whoa. And you're climbing down like 50 feet into this tunnel.
Yeah, we climbed down because it's like a little ladder. And then first of all, I was scared because I mean, because you have to kind of like swing in. It's like a huge like square hole.
Oh yeah, if you fell off that ladder, you would slamming
fall and you would slam your back like onto a big pipe full of asbestos.
You would probably need to go to the hospital.
Yeah, so I was scared because I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't slip. First of all, so I was getting down, and then you have to like snake your body like through the pipes so that you can get to the bottom of it, and then you have to be permanently crouched. You can't stand up because if you're standing up, your head is just gonna like continually touch like the asbestos pipe, you know, and like it's gonna be like chalk all over you.
Mhm.
So we're kind of crouching down, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's fine. Like on the map, like where we are to like getting into the hospital is fine. It's not like super far. But then of course I'm like crouching, and I mean, I have horrible knees, so like I start to feel it. And then of course Sonny like is looking ahead, and he's like, oh man, there's a lot of cave crickets. And I was like, oh
Yeah, like hundreds and hundreds just covering the walls.
It was so many. And I was like, okay, well, we're already here. I have my raincoat on. I was like, let me just put my hood on. I'll be a big girl.
Yeah,
It'll be fine. I'll just pretend it's raining. It's fine.
Raining
so
crickets.
there was all that. Yeah, and I mean, I felt like a few like pelt me, but it wasn't horrible. I tried to like shine my light away from them and like just pretend I wasn't looking at them. But the problem with that was then it was like, it wasn't like a super direct line to the hospital. It was kind of like turns. You had to turn some turns. So I remember feeling
you were
like,
kind of getting panicky.
I was getting a little panicky because I was telling Sonny like this shouldn't be taking this long.
Yeah.
It's like, and I was starting to freak out because being like,
and you didn't
I can't
have a light.
do this.
Like I had my flashlight in front of us, and I thought that would be enough for her to like kind of just like look in front of her and see me and kind of like how I was illuminating it. So she was like, I can't see, and so I was like, here, just take my light. So now I don't have a light. I'm going through this tunnel
into the
darkness, so I can't see. And like,
well, because at that point I didn't want to open my bag because my bag had my
camera
and everything, and I just didn't want to open it because like I was like, okay, I don't want to get all this grime in it. I already know I have all this grime. I could see on my jacket.
Yeah.
I was getting like powder on me and everything. I was like, I can't open my bag right now. My camera's in there.
But like, hey, there was no room to turn around.
Oh
like
God.
I couldn't even like do a half turn. I had to like look over my shoulder and be like, are you all right? Are you good? Like,
and even like with crouching, you had to crouch even more to make sure you weren't hitting pipes. And even when I was like, you could hear my bag like hitting stuff, even when I was pretty low down. And then I was worried I was gonna like, because again my knees are not great, so like I was worried like, oh, my knees are gonna give out and I'm gonna like fall into like this like muck that's on the ground because it was all like mush, like asbestos mush.
Yep.
So it was probably the grossest tunnels we've ever been in and the most cramped. And then eventually, it got better, but in that peak moment I was like, this is going way longer than I thought it was gonna be. And then
I was having a good time.
I remember I just told Sonny, I was like, I need to stop. I needed everything to pause. So I was like, let's just stop for a minute just so I can breathe and not have to think about anything. And then I was okay, but it was just like a moment because it was so tight that I was like, I can't deal. But then we got in there and it was fine. And then I think on the way back, because we knew then how long it was going to be, like it didn't feel as bad.
Yeah.
It was just when you're doing it for the first time and it's like unknown, it was a whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And actually, we want to go back. There's so much more to see there, but
because the tunnel when you first initially come down the ladder, you come down, it goes like straight and then it turns to a right. So like we went right, which was more uphill. The one that goes straight is more of like a downhill. So the person that we talked to, they said that potentially could have been flooded down there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like,
because we were saying like there's all these other buildings we wanted to go see, and they were like, I mean, it's also one of those things too that like this comes into the whole picture of like exploring abandoned buildings in like one day is very unrealistic.
Yeah.
Like I think some people like, and this is something I had to get acclimated with YouTube videos, is that like I'm not going to be able to film an entire location in one day, and that's okay. Like it's okay to film one building of one place and then come back and film more another day, because it is extremely unrealistic to like do all of that, especially if like you don't have like a guide or someone who knows everything about everywhere, you know, because otherwise you're kind of navigating in the dark and you have no idea what's going on. So I think it's one thing if you've like gone to a place a few times and then you're like, oh, I'm going to go back and film the whole thing. But if you're going in like blind and you have no idea, it is extremely unrealistic.
We'll be back.
Yeah, we definitely want to go back. I mean, I have a feeling they're probably going to be flooded. It would be such a bummer to go through all that again just to like
not
walk
get
down
in.
and realize, oh, you can't go anymore.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the thing that's going to be hard for that one, because those tunnels to get further down that campus, it's going to be much longer. And I feel like I'm going to have some moments where I'm going to be like, I can't do this.
Yeah, you just got to breathe it out.
So,
Oh my
but I mean,
God.
I don't know. Again, those are like moments that they make for like cool stories, because it just, again, it really distinguishes like how interesting I guess this hobby can get sometimes, that you're willing to like put yourself through those situations. And then like, me and Sonny's thing at the end of the day, whenever we get out of a place and we know 100% we're out, we fist bump.
Nice.
Because it's like, that's our signal.
Like,
that's our signal to be like, hey, another one bites the dust, another one. And they didn't know. Because we were in this place and we know that there's like some sense of security there. And we heard a car drive around the building twice. And we think it's just because it's the same car that you said.
I saw this car parked
by.
The car was parked out of the, like right in the front entrance. I just went there and I was looking at that car and I'm saying, that's like parked really weird. Let's just keep an eye out. So if we're out and we see this, it was like old Chevy Blazer. And I'm like, if we see this dude driving around, it's security. And an hour later, we're in the top floor of the building and I hear a car and it's this dude flying around the building. You know, he has no idea we're in there though, you know, but I'm just laughing at this dude going like, you're never gonna catch me, you know.
Yeah.
Just like knock on wood,
Yeah.
but still,
Oh
it's
my
funny.
god, the person to hit the couch that's literally made of leather. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, overall, it was really cool. I mean, in retrospect, I remember we were talking about how it's like kind of silly because, like, I mean, when we think about that hospital, there wasn't like necessarily a lot in it, but it was just exciting because we had wanted to go in there for so long because it is like a more like well-known, I guess, per se, like state hospital. Like, you know, I think a lot of the state hospitals are, you know, if you're into exploring, you'll know them.
Yeah.
So, but it was just, you know, something about having experience to say, oh yeah, I've finally been inside of this.
Had a beautiful
one.
morgue in it. Beautiful wooden morgue. I mean,
The
beautiful
morgue
sounds
and-
kind of morbid.
Like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, but I mean, there was a bunch of other stuff too.
9-tray
and-
morgue. Oh, it was
yeah,
amazing.
and,
It was
I mean,
amazing to see it.
we're always a sucker for the morgues. I think that's like one of the bigger pulls. I mean, obviously, like I try to go about it as respectfully as I can because
Yeah.
that's also like I don't want to be like overly glorifying it, but there is something about how there's like a lot of history tied to that, and
Sure.
also knowing that a lot of times those are like the original. All those are really the original pieces from when the place was first built.
Right.
Or at least a lot of them are.
That was.
So, yeah, that's always another crazy thing when you're looking at it.
Listening to your tunnel story, I'm sitting here and I'm like, the people that don't do Urbex that are listening to this are probably just like, why do you do this to yourselves?
I don't really like to talk about it a lot because I mean I like juggle a lot between like I don't want to call it because I feel like so stupid to say like professional life, and I'm like I want like anything to feel like just my life. I don't want to have to feel like I have to act a certain way that I can't be open about exploring whatever,
Yeah.
because I mean sometimes I feel weird about telling people like if I'm like when I was in school or when I was like employed, because I feel like people wouldn't understand.
Sure.
Or like I don't know if everyone really understands like the legality of it, because some people genuinely don't get that like there's a problem with like the law.
Yeah.
And that's fine because I'm like, oh, cool, you don't think that like I'm doing anything
Right.
wrong. But I mean, so far, at least anyone I've talked to about it, they actually seem like they're really fascinated with it. But it is also kind of like a thing where they're like, oh my God, I could never do that. Like everyone, all they say is like, how can you never be scared? Or they definitely have like a certain reaction that they're surprised that you would go through something like that just to see
For sure.
like what we've seen.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah,
it's
it's
interesting.
like, you know, when you think about it, who's going into these abandoned buildings, like taking a tunnel or doing all these crazy things? It's like really, when you think about it, you're like the character in like a video game or like a movie.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it's crazy for me, because like as urban explorers, we all share these experiences that no one else has, unless it was someone who worked in this hospital.
Exactly.
And then again, they weren't using these tunnels when it was abandoned.
Yeah.
It had lights on and it was nice. We're doing it like it's like the craziest way ever, but I know we share those experiences, and it's just like I said, you don't get that anywhere else in the world. I stick to it today. You'll never experience it anywhere else.
Absolutely.
What you had said with like kind of like the employees and like sharing experiences and stuff, I always think it's so cool too. Like some of these spots that we've gone to, it's like a lot of the people, it's always interesting when like, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure like this is a case for like a lot of like areas in general, that some places they end up turning them into almost like walking trails, or like you're allowed to kind of like walk around the buildings and stuff. So it's kind of a little interesting in that way that you see, like when you're walking around, you'll kind of see the same faces, or you'll recognize like people who are kind of like, they either grew up in that area or they were old employees. And I've had that happen where like you walk by like some of these like older state hospitals or something, and I'm taking pictures, and then like this older woman will come up and talk to me, and she'll just be like, oh, did I hear that you mentioned, like, because at the time I was talking to some other people saying like, oh yeah, I heard that they're trying to turn a few of these buildings into apartments. So this woman comes up to me and she's like, oh, did you say that they're trying to turn this one into an apartment? She was like, I was like one of the nurses who worked here. And she's like, I remember taking out one of the last patients here back in December of like 95 when they were closing down. Like she remembers wheeling literally like the last person out.
Wow.
And it's just crazy like how you bump into like people like that, and like that, you know, in the sense like the connection to these places feels really far away, but it's also like literally right in front of you. like a literally like an older woman could just walk right up to you, and like there are still people out there who used to work here. There are some patients that are still out there. It's kind of interesting. But I mean, from her perspective, it was cool to hear actually, because she was always telling me, you know, like, you know, we treated our, you know, patients like the best that we could. We were actually praised by other hospitals for how well we took care of them, how they never had bed sores, all this stuff. And she was like, it was always such a happy memory. Like it is kind of nice to like kind of debunk a little bit of like this, again, more of these stereotypes, I guess, of every single place being haunted, because I think that is a problem in the paranormal community, is that people will go in and every single place they'll 100% go in being like, this place has to be haunted. And
before they even know, they'll hear some outlandish story. They'll be like, oh yeah, 10,000 people died here. I'm like, okay.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, like,
it's
and
not
then
a
it's like,
war zone.
And it's like, yeah, like, you know, to say that that can't have like a contributing factor, that there was a lot of death or that there were some awful inhumane treatments. Like obviously those are all factors there, but it's not to say that like that paints a whole picture as to what happened or like who chose to, you know, stick behind, if there's any spirits or anything. I think that's why it's important to always go in, like Sonny had said before, like very open-minded and don't, because I think once you come in with those preconceived notions, you almost like, it's easy to set yourself up to think that things are happening when they're not, to overplay stuff. And I mean, this is, again, it also comes into the situation of like people putting out fake evidence, like intentionally, because they want it for just for content. So,
which sucks for me though, because then it's like people watch those videos and they get, that's like they perceive paranormal as like some crazy like you're gonna get picked up and thrown.
Yeah, it's like gonna be like someone like chokeholds you, like the spirit.
It's not like that, you know. It's so unknown, and it's not like that. And it's like, you know, I remember Greg Abandon on your show. He doesn't believe in the paranormal at all, but I'm saying like, just come with me and investigate with me and see how it really is. You know, it's not like the movies. It's not like a lot of the stuff on YouTube is not real. It's like clickbait stuff. So it's not all like that. You know, there are people who actually are curious and want to know if this stuff's out there. So it just gives it a bad rap.
Yeah. So I think that's a whole thing. So it was interesting to hear like from her perspective, like an insider saying, you know, like what she remembers of the place and that she does remember it very fondly, her having good memories. Like she was literally staring at this building, remembering, oh, like I remember like being at the end of those like sunrooms and like hanging out with the like it was just, it's such a different perspective. And I always thought, it's like I never wanted to demonize any of the people who worked at these places, because at the end of the day, like they're just doing their jobs and that doesn't mean that they were I guess complacent in like all these bad things happening. I'm sure a lot of them didn't really have anything that they could do if there were places that, you know, awful things were happening. But also like, I don't know, I think more than anything, it's just unfortunate that like it's such a large stereotype applied to places before people even give it a chance to just experience it and see, okay, is there actually any activity even here? It's like, bam, haunted, just because you saw that it's a hospital that's abandoned, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think that is a big problem. But I think that just comes with the territory of like, you know, people filming these places and trying to make content, and like people for a long time. And I think this is still the case, unfortunately, that people think you have to make content that's clickbait in order to get popular. And I don't think that that's true. I don't think that people like that. And I think, if anything, people really appreciate if you're genuine and that means something to them. And I think that there's something different about connecting with a creator who is like 100% just straight up as it is. Because like, I think it's almost like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Yeah. And what do you guys hope for the future of urban exploring?
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I think it's one of those things too that people always say, like, do you think that like urban exploring will just die out?
Never.
And it's like, never it will, because I think I've always said that like, for me, urban exploring is just like, I feel like it just is a great reflection of how, like, I don't want to say it's like a reflection of like capitalism, or if it's like a bigger picture of like how we are always about building new stuff, throw away the old stuff, and like never really looking back. And we're always about like advancing, and we leave just so much behind. It's like ridiculously wasteful. I think it's some sort of like reflection of like our society, and like, I don't know. There's something about it, about like, you know, looking at a building and knowing the monetary value of how much was left there. And it's almost just like mind-boggling how it was so easily disposable, and how it's just like such a common theme everywhere. And I think that's just something that's never going to go away. That, and I mean, I think it's just, I mean, the only thing I can think about the future is that naturally things are going to shift. I mean, like I said, there's this era of asylums and state hospitals and all that stuff. And that's kind of, although it's like something that I like a lot more, it is dying out, and then it's going to shift to something else. I mean,
the new age.
There's going to be these new age places, or whether it's, you know, these older style movie theaters. Like I feel like what we've said is like, we see like the older mom and pop movie theaters, because now there's like these newer like AMCs taking over. So I feel like that's more of like a modern thing you see.
Yeah, we found some movie theaters that were like, it's like looks like a 90s style movie theater, you know, still had like power and stuff. I'm just like, this is like the result of, not only because, I mean, COVID-19, that shut down for so long, that affected a lot of these businesses. A lot of places we go to are shut down because of that reason. There's been a few. Yeah,
so that's like another, like, I guess a new wave thing too, is like, you know, public health and what that means for like businesses and small businesses. And I guess mainly COVID will be another big generation, I think, of abandoned places. Because again, I think a lot of the places now, I feel like most of them were shut down from COVID or around COVID, or had some sort of factor involved with that. And I mean, I think that that's just going to keep happening. There's just going to be like either like big events that cause more places to become shut down, and it's just going to be like a newer generation thing. So I think sometimes it is sad in my mind, because I do really cherish some of those older buildings. And I mean, it is a shame mostly because you know that like those older state hospitals are getting demolished and a lot of the history isn't getting preserved, because I would always love to see that architecture specifically, because it's such unique architecture. We don't build places like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure we'll even say something about the places that are abandoned now recently. Like we're going to look 20 years from now and say, oh, it wasn't built like that. But I would love, they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah.
But I would love to see those places preserved, which is why I'm so happy that, like, you know, some of those state hospitals, like my local one that I love to go to all the time, like, okay, maybe it's gonna be a little weird seeing them as apartments, but I would rather that happen than them be completely torn apart and these like gorgeous, like these stunning white pillars that are out front and everything. It's like I would love to see that kept around, because that's like, just, I don't know,
classic.
Yeah, I guess that's like a good way to put it. But I don't know, I think it's just like I see Urbex as very dynamic, and that's just how it's going to keep being. It's just going to keep shape shifting, I guess.
I just hope that people keep the passion for it. You
exactly.
know? Like, I don't plan on stopping it. You know, I plan on exploring for as long as I can and doing investigations for as long as I can. But I hope that, you know, the new generation, like maybe like not learns faster, but they learn the rules kind of, and they
have some sense of respect.
I guess. They do it right. They do it with respect, and you know, that's all we can really ask for. Like when people on TikTok, they ask me, oh, where is this? Where is this? I try to tell people, like, you know, I don't give out locations to prevent further vandalism to these spots, because people don't know. Some people just give out locations on TikTok that put the coordinates.
Or they think it's for clout too.
People think that's
big
normal.
Issue too. Yeah, exactly. They think it's normalized to blast spots online. That's a whole other
issue. That's
issue.
our thing. We always try to just teach people and just be nice to people, because someone might not know, and you just being nice and telling someone, hey, we don't give out locations to stop vandalism, stop, you know, whatever is going to happen to this place.
That could be the reason why they get it, you know?
That could change somebody, and that can that could turn someone into a trustworthy urban explorer who's going to be respectful and kind of do what we're doing, which that's what we want.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is, I guess recognizing that things are always going to be abandoned. That's always going to be how it is. But also just hoping that like the generation of people that come with this hobby, that something changes in the level of respect, how we treat places, is that they're not disposable, because that's a whole issue of using up a spot and then feeling like, oh, well, now it's trash and now it's like a gimme that we can just, you know, use it just for, you know, content or whatever. Like, I think that's a problem, is that eventually it feels like a spot's become like spent, and then it can just be like thrown aside. And that's something that I really don't like, because it's just
we've seen it
we've seen it times and time again, because then that's just what happens. And that's, if anything, that's the main contributing factor for why they get so trashed. Not really because, I mean, yeah, naturally, of course, over time stuff happens, but that's really what accelerates it all. So I would just hope that people would change maybe how they approach Urbex, or like that. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say that, because I feel like it's very unrealistic, sadly, to expect that of people. Yeah. But it's something that, you know, if I had like a dream world, like I would hope that only people who really cared would be involved in that. Like, I don't know. If people want to start fires and stuff, can you just do it somewhere else? Like,
right. Yeah, go have a bonfire.
Go have a bonfire. Yeah. Go have a bonfire and burn like your clothes or something. I don't know.
Like have like arson?
Yeah, go burn like your own stuff. I don't know. But
no, for real.
There's always gonna be people out there who like, that's what they see places as, you know, like I've gotten the justification a lot. Well, it's abandoned. Like, who cares? Like, it's almost like just because it's abandoned, like they just see it as like, you know, and again,
like it's the Wild West.
We don't, and maybe that's something interesting about people who are in Urbex, is that that's the whole point for us, is we don't just see it as an abandoned place versus everyone else who's outside of the hobby. We see it as like something fascinating and magical. And there's, you know, for people, it's history, or just seeing the decay, or feeling like we see something that not a lot of people see, or like, again, like some sort of like, I feel like sometimes these photos almost feel like a little bit of like a public commentary of like how wasteful our infrastructure and, you know, kind of constant drive to build and not look at what we've left behind is. I mean, there's so many different reasons why it draws people in. And I don't know. I think, unfortunately, the hobby is just going to keep also attracting not so great people who want to use places. I don't think it's even people who don't know that it's wrong. I think some people know that what they're doing is in poor taste, and they just do it anyways, because now we're in a generation where social media can become a living and you can make money off of pretty much anything. And that was also something different, where I think you see it in older generations that wasn't how it was, because you couldn't make money out of Urbex. Like, and, I mean, I don't even 20 years ago, I don't think it was like that back then, really. No. So that's a whole nother thing too, that I think kind of changes the game. Even with TikTok too, is like we've seen it. I mean, obviously we're two examples of it, that it can work out really well for people, but obviously there's also other people out there who are doing it for all the wrong reasons, and they also get a lot of the benefits. So you know, you
gotta love it.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, I think it's a complicated future picture,
but yeah.
And then my last question for you guys is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started exploring?
Um, I don't want to be like, I feel like this is like a catty way to leave, but it's like, don't trust everyone you like talk to. I mean, I feel like I don't know. I think it's something about like just be mindful of who you're engaging with, because unfortunately, like a lot of people out there, like I said, they can be nice to your face, or they're trying to use you for something and you don't really realize until it's already happened, or like, I think you just have to be really mindful of like who you're engaging with. And I think I will say I've met some really great people. I feel like, Austin's really great. Austin Urbex.
Big Banks.
Big Banks is
I
awesome.
love
He's a
him.
really nice guy.
You can just tell. When we talk to them, you can just tell they're being genuine with you. They're authentic. When we met Banks, it was like, I don't know. I just felt like a connection. Like I was just friends with him already. Like it was just like we had Urbex in common, and I just was like, oh, we're friends. It's just so easy.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some people you can just hit it off with, and you know that you can trust them. And then there's some other people where you kind of like, you're like, I'm trying to tease out a little bit. I don't really know how I feel about this. And I mean, maybe when like they only hit you up about spots, or like, I don't even know. I mean, it's an interesting thing to navigate, and it's hard to know like who's on your side or not, because then you also start to question when you get more notoriety, which like I'm not saying by any means we have like notoriety, but like, we have a lot of followers on TikTok. We out of nowhere started getting more followers on Instagram, and like sometimes I start to question, okay, like did people reach out just because of that? Because I don't think you really knew anything about me. And it's not to say, because obviously I don't really know people's intentions just off of that, but I mean,
you gotta watch your back.
It's just being mindful of it and kind of just being alert, because unfortunately there's a lot of people out there who I know are like, I don't know. I mean, I'll notice people who comment just on my stuff, but they comment it in a way that sounds like very self-promo-y, like, oh, cool, I went here too, I made a video here. I'm like, okay, you could have just like awesome video versus like making it into a self-promo or something. I don't know. Exactly, yeah. So unfortunately, like that can happen.
Delete.
And it can, And I don't know. I have a lot of anxiety, so like, I don't really like to get into beef with people, because like it just really stresses me out, and it takes me away from this whole thing, which is I want to have fun. Yeah. I'm not here to like make a bunch of like drama, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, I mean, you could argue with people all day long on here, and you would turn blue in the face, and nothing would change. So I don't know, but I think it's just, again, I learned over time that like my nature is to be kind of eager and people pleasing, and I have to like learn to rein that in a little bit, because a lot of the people out there will take advantage of that and use you and use you and use you until you got nothing else to give, and then they realize that, and then they're like on to the next, Yep. So
absolutely. And Sonny, what about you for that?
For me, I think I just wish that I picked up a camera and just knew how to use it right away, and I knew what cameras to buy, I knew what gear to bring, because there's places that when I first started exploring, I didn't use a camera, I didn't use anything. I just went to just take it all in, and then just seeing everything made me want to whip my phone out and take a few pictures, and then that involved to a GoPro, and that involved to a camera, But there's places that are gone now that I'll never get to take pictures of, and I only have the memories in my head, which is great. But it would just really be nice to go back and just really appreciate those spots the way they needed to be appreciated, and just take some awesome pictures, and just to go back and relive that. And just, I don't know, it feels like, not that I missed out, it just feels like I'll never get another chance to do that. It's gone forever now. So
yeah,
got you.
That can be hard when like, you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I was like better when I went to this place, so I could have like taken better shots. That's like my whole thing.
Or I wish I had stayed longer.
Yep.
Yeah, like a lot of little things like that. And I mean, you'll never really know until like after the fact. I don't know. I feel like you just can't sweat what you can't change. I think that's like the best thing I could ever think of, is just to not get so preoccupied in that, because it's also like, okay, all of these experiences made me like get to where I am now, and I'm happy with where I am now. So it's like, if I wished I did anything differently, things would have changed, and who knows where I would be now, or if I would still be happy with what I've been doing, or I don't know. Like, you have to learn at some point, like it's all going to be like a learning curve. So if that's where the bottom of the learning curve is, it's like, that's where it had to be,
Absolutely. So. And if people want to keep following your journeys, where can they find you online? Drop your social media, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that.
Yeah, so for me, it's like Urbex_Muse for TikTok, Instagram. I mean, it's just Urbex Muse on YouTube. I feel like those are the holy trinity, I guess, of what I do. So those are mine.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I have TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and you can find me XplorewithSonny, but Explore is with an X.
All right, that was my episode with Urbex Muse and XplorewithSonny. thank you both for coming on the podcast and sharing your stories. That was such an awesome episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this longer episode of the No Tracers podcast. Be on the lookout for that Urbex guidebook. I'm actually starting it. It's begun. It has begun. I'm going to try to team up with another urban explorer that draws sketches. I've actually had him on the podcast. His name is Cursed Sketchbook. If you guys haven't checked out that episode, I will actually link it down in the description. He lives in Portugal and he takes these amazing photos and then he draws sketches into the photos. So I'm going to see if he'll help illustrate this guidebook. I think it would be super sick to team up with him and do something together. All thanks to this podcast and social media. Like, this has been an absolutely incredible experience getting to create this podcast for you all and help you learn some tips and tricks for urban exploring and sharing some insane stories with you guys and having my guests share their crazy stories too. It's been super cool. So thank you for supporting the podcast and for listening to it every single Friday. I appreciate you guys. I will talk to you next week for another episode. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. If you're a veteran listener, please leave a rating and feedback on Apple Podcasts. It helps the podcast grow in the society and culture section. And if you do leave a rating and feedback, take a screenshot of it and DM it to me at no.tracers on Instagram, and I will mail you a signed photo print of an abandoned place that I have explored as a way of saying thank you for doing that. You guys are the best. Check out Liquid Death Mountain Water, like I said at the beginning of this episode. Go check it out. Get some water. Use promo code JustTheLetterK. And I'll talk to you next week for another episode of the No Tracers podcast. Stay strong. Keep enduring. Go out. Go explore something. And remember, leave no trace.